Listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very privileged to have Dr. Elizabeth DuBois here with me. She is an executive coach and a divorce coach. And we're going to get to know her and have a great conversation. And so let's kick this off. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I am, like you said, an executive coach and a divorce coach, which maybe sounds a little bit kind of like two diverse practice areas, but I find that there tends to be a lot of overlap because whether it's leadership or creating a new life, the thing that they have in common is really about getting in touch with who you are, your core, grounding into that, clearing away the bullshit artifice of this is the way things have to be, this is the way things are done, and moving into a place of what do I feel like in my gut is the right answer in this moment, and how do I sound so hokey, right? But like, how do I stand in that truth and live from that place? I find a lot of times when people are in leadership, whether that's within the nonprofit sector, the private sector, in elected leadership, there's so many ways that things are done, right? Well, this is just the way it's done. This is how things work. And when we have, a unique period in history like the one we're living through, right? We have a lot of dismantling of power structures happening right now. We have Black Lives Matter really, pushing us to consider where we are as a society and what we need to do in order to actually make good on the claims that are in our Constitution, that are in our Declaration of Independence. We have a lot of different topsy-turvy things happening with the way that we think about gender and gender disparities. We have so many moments of change happening. And so when we look at how do we move into a society that looks a lot like the one we'd like to have, the one that we say we have, becoming comfortable with leadership looking differently than it has up to this point, I think is really key to that. And so with executive coaching, what I do is help people really ground into what are the things that they feel are true in terms of their understanding of how things should work, how their companies can grow, how their nonprofits can grow, the things that they offer their constituents, and moving that vision forward with confidence and clarity. And then on the divorce coaching side, it's the same, right? A little less attuned to societal change or business development, and much more attuned to, okay, I've been in a situation where I thought my life would look one way and it's turned out to look quite different. Given that that's the case, how do I allow myself to move forward in a way that is authentic? And the way that I got into this was in large part because I went and got a PhD in conflict analysis and resolution with a focus on marital conflict. I've done work and research on domestic violence and marital conflict in 4 countries over the course of a decade. And from that work really got juiced about the idea that there were a lot of potential for societal transformation if we look at marriage and leadership as points of potential transformation for the way that things could get better and get different.
Well, I know when I was married the first time, and I was in that marriage for about 20 years, my life never moved forward.
Mm-hmm.
I was literally married to a narcissist who couldn't tell the truth to save her life. Always excuses when we didn't have money to pay bills and that, but yet she was walking around in new shoes and got a new purse and all kinds of other stuff. Never seemed to back me in my dreams and the things I wanted to do. And yet I made sure that I did everything to help her to pursue her dreams. Constantly lied to my children so they thought that I was this evil person. And then when she left me for another guy, a much younger guy, by the way. Instead of being upset, it seemed like a relief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it took me 10 years to find a relationship that I felt comfortable enough to get married again.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm actually pursuing my dreams. I have someone that's in my corner,
Mm-hmm.
someone that, she does everything she can to encourage me. And of course, I do everything I can to encourage her. We, we are definitely in a partnership because we share everything, as the chores, the cooking, the cleaning, all that. And now it's like I'm relaxed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um
I relate to that so hardcore.
but there are many folks out there that they're in a relationship like that, and they don't want to, it's like they don't want to get out of it, or they don't know how. So what would be your advice to help someone who's in a narcissist type relationship?
Yeah, wow. It's interesting. I said I relate so hard to that. I relate less to the narcissist. My ex-husband is a really good guy. And more to the just like feeling relaxed. I'm in a relationship now where I know where I stand at all times. There's never a moment where I'm like feeling controlled or that I'm not quite sure which way is up. And it is, it's a relief, it's a relaxation. Okay, so how to leave a narcissist 101. First off, I think that there's we're like living through a cultural moment where like narcissist is kind of a buzzword, right? If someone's an asshole, then, then they must be a narcissist. In my book, narcissism it's a personality disorder, right? Unlike a mental illness, right? Like schizophrenia, bipolar, depression. Narcissism is an underlying personality disorder. It's kind of built into the hardware of how someone functions, versus a program that's running on the hardware, which would be kind of more the way to think of mental illness. So with narcissism, I think of the defining characteristics that underlies it is it's a fixation on having one's needs met, right?
Mhm.
And as humans, like our biological drive is to have our needs met, right? From the second we pop out of our mom, like we need to have our needs met. We need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to hopefully not die of diaper rash. We need our needs met, right? But when someone has narcissism, this underlying personality disorder, this is a hyper fixation. It's having my needs met at the expense of others. And that's not necessarily a like, they're not walking around the world being like, how do I fuck over other people in the service of having my needs met? But oftentimes that happens, right? Where
Mhm.
there's such a myopic focus on what I need, what I want, how do I get it? And again, none of this is kind of like frontal lobe intentional thinking where they're like, haha, today I will fuck people over. It's just an inability to really empathize with where the other party might be, and a lack of willingness to try, right?
Mhm.
So we've got someone walking around in the world and they have a hyperfixation on having their needs met. The next element of narcissism is, are they controlling people? Are they seeking to control in an effort to have those needs met, right? Because someone could walk around the world and be like, I need my needs met. I need my needs met. And their methodology is, make $1 billion every year so that they can have all of the resources that they need to, have a housekeeper and a chauffeur and a private chef and a masseuse and, what a sugar baby, all the things that you could possibly want in order to have your needs met. Or you can get into a relationship with someone and walk around the world viewing them as the reason that your needs are not being met, and therefore you will control that person through overt and kind of less overt and subtle ways in order to get what you want. And
Yeah.
then the third element is this hyperfixation on how you're being perceived. So a narcissist wants to be the good guy or the good girl in all contexts, and they will warp reality through their words, both towards the person that they're in a relationship with, as well as to the outside world, in order to make that reality reflect them as the hero. So there's always going to be some element of gaslighting, of twisting the truth in order for them to be seen as kind of the person who is either being wronged or the person who is kind of sticking the landing on how life should be. So we've got a hyperfixation on how our needs are met. We've got a desire to control others in order to have our needs met. And then we want to be seen as kind of the person that's getting it right. And when all three of those elements are present, and you are the spouse or you are the significant other, you are the person kind of in the midst of the storm who is the most likely target. You're not causing the hurricane, but you're standing in the storm. And narcissists don't change. They're not going to become someone different. And what I see often is people, especially women, this plays out a lot with women, people are socialized to believe that love can change someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just love this person enough, right? Things will get different, things will get better. And then you have the narcissist reinforcing that belief by saying, if you just do this better, I'll be able to, stop doing this, right? So what if this is landing for you?
Well, I will say you just describe the relationship that my daughter just got out of, because that was her thing. She had been with this guy and then broke up with him, get back with him, broke up with him.
Yeah.
And then she would say, well, if he's on his medication, if I just do all this better and I love him enough, he'll be okay, he'll change. And I told my wife when she moved back in with him, I said, you watch, 2 weeks from now, it'll be back to the same old, because he's going to act okay in the beginning, but then he'll go back to being the same old jerk in 2 weeks. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, he was back to the same old. And I noticed that we both have this problem with our own, we don't have confidence in ourselves in a way. We think, well, we can't do any better. And we're lucky to have this person, and we're willing to accept the abuse. And whether it wasn't so much physical, it was emotional and mental abuse. And so we share that a lot in common, even though we're not blood related. It's like we have a spiritual connection, I guess. I don't care if she came from another man, that's still my daughter,
Yeah, of course. I mean, families are made in all kinds of ways. So there's a couple of things going on, right? So researchers call that dynamic, right? Where they break up, get together, break up, get together. It's called cycling. And the reason that it happens is that there's kind of a bond that happens between the two people. Sometimes it's called trauma bonding, where one person feels like they can complete the other. So, if you can think of this, I know this is an audio file, so I'm going to try to illustrate what I'm doing here.
Well, it's video too, so.
Okay, perfect, great. So we pop out of our mom, and we are, for the most part, right, unless you are coming from a context in which you're popping out addicted to some sort of substance, which certainly happens, but for the sake of argument, let's just talk about in theory. You pop out of your mom, you're like this, right? You're walking around the world and you're relating to people. This is interdependence. You get into relationships with people and you're interdependent, right? I am helping you mow the lawn and we are cooking dinner together and we are having healthy, fun sex and everyone is having a good time. And for the most part, life is good, even though taxes suck and the dog needs to go to the vet, right? This is interdependence. What happens often is, as children, we learn that in order to have our needs met, mom behaves like this, right? Mom is not like this, mom behaves like this, and dad behaves like this, right? And we've got different kind of variations in personality traits and in the ways that we have adapted our behavioral patterns in order to get our needs met. And so as little children, what we do in order to get our needs met is we are going to match that pattern. So we go from being a blank canvas to matching the pattern of relation that our parents have in order to have our needs met, right? In order for me to get the love and affirmation I want, right? Dad's going to come to the recital and clap for me. I know that I need to be a perfect good girl and not talk about the fact that I, whatever the thing is, right? I'm not allowed to get up in the middle of the night because I'm scared. I have to lie in my bed quietly because that's what's going to get me you're a good girl, right? And so I'm going to just learn that it's more important to be scared than it is to speak up when I'm afraid. I'm pulling this example from a client that I have. So we walk around the world and we learn that in order to get love, in order to get our needs met, we're going to bend in this way. So we go into adulthood, teenage years, right? We're like, oh, I can't wait to get a boyfriend. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be loved, blah, blah, blah. Right? And we look for someone that has the same bent. This is called trauma bonding. We're going to find someone that has the same particular patterns of relating to other people so that we can get into a cycle where we feel connected, right? The problem with this is when you go to separate, you can't. And so we see cycling happen in relationships because the couple has come to believe that this is the person that is going to really understand them the best. And I should say, I'm speaking here not just from my experience as a researcher, but I've lived out some of these patterns, especially in earlier relationships. So with this kind of concept of I'm going to be on good behavior and then I'm going to kind of escalate and then I'm going to explode. It's a very well documented cycle, domestic violence cycle, whether or not there's actual, physical violence in place. We know that people change a lot. It's traumatizing to be in a relationship where someone, you're walking on eggshells and then you have this tensing period and then there's a blow up. And then you guys reconnect as the honeymoon phase. Then you go back into tensing and then you go into a blow up. And every time you go around this kind of hamster wheel of doom, you're getting a dopamine hit from the reconnection. Saying, oh my gosh, I feel, we're meant for each other. And sorry, I will never do that again. I just really, I just lost my temper because it's been so hard at work. And I need your love because I know that you're the one for me. Right. And we go around and around and around and around and around because we get hooked on this dopamine hit that we get when we reconnect with that person. It feels so good to be recommitted to the person that we're bent like. And so we stay in this pattern for a very long time.
It was always my belief that there's a reason why they're your ex in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. I woke up to a text message from someone that I'd gone on a couple of dates with, and I had cut off, the budding relationship after 2 dates. I think we talked on the phone for about a week and then we'd gone on 2 different dates. And there's just like way too, it was like the red flag, waving brigade. And so I cut it off. And he reached out this morning and said something and then was like, even though you fucked me over in a really shitty way. And I was like, because I told you I didn't want to have a relationship with you. My bad. And I was just like, I can, good on your ex-wife for leaving, man.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I'd say it took me 10 years to find the woman that I'm with now. Mm-hmm. And mind you, I was in and out of some really bad relationships. And I found myself like overdoing it. Like I would do all the cooking, all the cleaning, everything, thinking this was going to make them want to stay, and not realizing that I wasn't really standing up and being the man that I was supposed to be. Instead, I was just a pushover. Mm-hmm. And when I met Michelle, my wife now, we talked for a long time before we went out on the first date. Mm-hmm. And we really got to know each other. And then I found that she was, in a strange way, allowing me to be who I really am, which helped build up confidence. And I have a hard time taking praise. I still don't think I'm good enough, but I'm stepping up to the bat, I should say. And it's also given me the courage to start the podcast and make a business out of it. And she actually has every reason in the world to leave if she wanted to, because after we got together, I developed a disease in my spine where my bones are deteriorating. And so I can't get around like I used to. I had to retire early, but she's been in my corner the whole time. She said, I don't care. I just want to be with you. And even if you're not able to walk again, I still want to be here. And I'm making this happen. Do you find that getting away from those relationships like adds that courage or that I don't know, the confidence to
It
do
can.
this.
It can. So I think that there's a couple of ways it can go. One is someone can get out, which is difficult, right? For all the reasons we just talked about, right? The bonding, the kind of toxic hamster wheel of domestic violence cycle. There's so many different reasons why it's hard to bounce. And when you do, a couple of different things can happen. One, you can go replicate the same pattern with another person, right? The initial new relationship energy, as Dan Savage calls it, the NRE, of being with someone and kind of the high flying feelings that come with initial attraction, things like that, can be really easy to overlook red flags, and it can be really tempting to overlook red flags, right? And so because you've kind of curved in a particular way, you can fall into the same cycle immediately with someone else. The other thing that can happen is you get a boost of self-confidence, right? You do the inner work to get to a place where you're like, fuck it, I'm out. I deserve better than this. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Or, your kids are suffering consequences, right? Emotional and otherwise. And that gives you enough of a oomph to get out of it. But then you kind of like stay in a place of, I did it, and now I'm going to kind of tread water, and I'm going to be really stuck on how I failed my marriage, how I didn't make it work. I can never make a relationship work. I can't, like, where did I go wrong? Right. And kind of take the ownership. The other thing that I see in that kind of vein, like if we can hybrid those two different patterns of, I'm going to fall right back into the same thing, and I'm going to take a lot of like over responsibility for the situation. I see a lot of women kind of pass around this like empowerment, self-help therapy nonsense where they talk about my picker is broken. I'll say, well, my picker is broken. I just keep picking the wrong guy over and over again. And this kind of, I see this often in 12-step rooms too, where they're like, well, it's all my fault, because every single choice that I made that led to these consequences was my choice. And it's like, well, okay, biology is playing a role here. Socialization is playing a role here. There's so many different contributing factors that go into being in an abusive situation, developing addictive tendencies. There's so many different things that contribute to us getting into situations where we're fucking ourselves over. And I think it can be very tempting, and I think can be tempting to take more responsibility than is really ours to take, and say, well, I caused this was on me, my picker's broken, I made terrible choices, I'm an addict and I fucked it up, versus there's biological and socialized reasons that I ended up in this situation, and how do I support myself and my growth and personal development so that I can address and heal those things so that this doesn't happen again. And I think that we live in a society. America is really big on bootstraps, right? We're like, pull yourself together and, make it happen, and get up at 4 a.m. and work out for 47 years, and then publish a book, and then, take a shit and, create a new recipe for a power bar all before 8 a.m. because you can do it. Right. And we've got this kind of high performance culture mixed with neoliberalism that says it's all on you to make it work. And that can really become very unhelpful when it comes to how do I stop engaging in a pattern of relationship like this. Because what we need to say is, not my picker is broken, but what are the instigating factors that are leading me to end up in relationships like this? Not I fucked it up and I'm broken and I'm screwed up and therefore my picker is broken and therefore I keep ending up with the wrong guy, but what are the kind of childhood patterns that are playing out here today that were present, again, as a child, that need to be healed in order for me to make different choices, not better choices, but different choices. How do I support myself? How do I love myself? How do I grow? when you ask those questions, you move past this initial burst of self-confidence that then kind of like peters out into, well, I'm out of the relationship, but it's my fault and I caused it and blah, blah, blah. And I just should have seen the warning signs and the red flags and I fucked it up. If you can work on healing yourself, working with a good therapist, working with a good coach. And again, I want to delineate that those are two very different types of people. I work with coach and a therapist at all times. Getting support, getting help, helping yourself see those different underlying patterns and heal them and address them, then you have a shot at lasting self-confidence that can really bloom into something quite different, which is what it sounds like you've done.
A lot of folks out there, they don't seek the help that they really need, because a lot of this you can't do on your own. And sometimes you need someone to remind you that you do have the answers. You just you're not grasping them. You mentioned about the things that happened as a child. I mean, my first wife and I were let's say, broken. I was molested as a child, and then she was molested by her stepfather and had a child by him. And so I think it was kind of the blind leading the blind. And then once, I guess she got comfortable with me, and then I think that's when the narcissism kicked in.
Yeah.
And then I was still that broken person who had no confidence. And, I mean, how do you deal with something that happens to you like that?
Yeah.
And then, even though I went into therapy later in life and got a lot of help, it still wasn't resonating with me. But for some reason, when I got with Michelle, I was starting to like get over that. I will say, though, I've had a lot of people that have come on my show that have dealt with people that have gone through that, and they've given me great advice. I get stronger every time I talk to someone like you. I get stronger and stronger and stronger. But I do have the affirmation from my wife.
Yeah.
I think it's also important that people know you need to validate yourself. You don't need others to validate you. But it does help when you have somebody in your corner. For sure.
Amen. Yeah. Well, first off, I'm really sorry you went through that, God, which is, the words are insufficient. I think it can be really powerful to kind of build off what you said about the validation has to come from within as well. There's kind of maybe three things that I want to suggest to folks if you're in a position where you are really needing to do some significant personal growth in order to, I don't want to say get over, but move to a place where those experiences are less active in your day-to-day remembrances, right? We all kind of like things pop up in our memory as our move through the day, right? But I don't in general think about what I had for lunch at kindergarten on a regular basis, but I really sit down with it. I remember that a teacher told me you can't eat pineapple and drink milk at the same time, and that advice has served me well. But it's not a memory that's active in my day-to-day kind of mental Rolodex at all times. And so when we kind of think about like extreme trauma, right, in the genre that you experienced, that your ex-wife experienced, what we want to think about is less, how do I get over it, and more, how do I gently surround this experience with love and with caring and with kind of a neutral approach, as opposed to, I can't believe this fucking happened, or of course this happened and I deserve it and I'm bad. How do we approach it with some neutrality and say, this is a thing that happened and it really affected who I am. And I'm choosing that just for today, this is going to be something that I gently set on the shelf and let it be a thing that doesn't define who I am.
Right. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right now, and not putting pressure on yourself to say, forever and ever and ever, I have to get over this. Because we know, from good brain researchers, we know that trauma recovery is not linear. PTSD recovery is not linear. We have flashbacks, we have flare-ups when we get triggered by particular incidences. I think we're living through an interesting moment in history where we have this kind of language about like snowflakes, and like trigger warnings, like, oh, trigger warnings are, whoa. I taught at American University in GW for a while. And there's this kind of like very nuanced debate among like liberals versus, like I would say far left, far right conservatives about like trigger warnings. And, I'm pretty like squarely like moderate conservative, but I'm always just like, why is this a thing? Like if I was going to be teaching about sexual violence, I would say to people like, hey, next week we're going to be talking about rape and we're going to be talking about, these other things. And so if you need to have a stomach ache next week and not come to class, that is just fine. And like that was not me being like, alert. It was just like, hey, if you would prefer not to, have experience of childhood sexual assault come to the forefront of your mind for the next 3 months, skip class next week, thanks. And we've got all this kind of language that makes it very difficult for us to have actual conversations about how to help people move through trauma, right? Not necessarily move past it, but move through it. So the 3 things that I want to suggest to people: 1, get a whiteboard or chalkboard, write on that chalkboard people that will unconditionally affirm the shit out of me. And then write down every single person in your life, and maybe it's 2 people and maybe it's 22 people, every single person that no matter what, if you pick up the phone, they're gonna be like, oh my God, you're the shit, and I think you're the best, and I can't believe, oh my God, you got fired. Well, they're fucking lost, fuck them, like that person, those people, write that board. And if you are in a place where your trauma memories are really, really active, that you're going through an active reliving, those are the people to talk to. Anyone else that you have to talk to, whether it's your boss or your mama, keep the communication limited and really just surround yourself with people that are going to not just bolster you, but like foie gras force feed love down your gullet, because you need it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is being very attuned to what are the things that are going to trip wire me, right? So if I know that going into a movie theater, like for some reason going into a movie theater for me really activates some of the feelings of dread and anticipation that I had in the immediate aftermath of my sexual assault. It's very difficult for me, even though I wasn't assaulted in a movie theater. I think the dark and the enclosedness and the kind of like loud noises and all of it feels very out of my control. So I don't go to movie theaters if I'm feeling very sensitive,
right.
And instead of being like, oh man, I can't, what the fuck, this happened so many years ago, and it's a fucking movie theater and you just want to go see the Minions with your kid, and I'm just like, okie dokie, today's not the day. So really having that kind of neutral energy instead of the like, get over it, dumbass pushing. And then the third thing, I call this mirror work, and I guess we'll talk about inner child too. So I want you to do 2 things beyond your whiteboard and your being attuned to triggers. I want you to every night start to sit in front of the mirror. If you've got a full-length mirror, this is really easy. Just get cozy in front of it. If you've got to sit on your bathroom vanity, go for it. Get comfortable sitting in front of a mirror and just start talking nicely to yourself. Bonus points if you place your hand on your heart, kind of skin to skin, so you've got that contact and can kind of invite your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the brakes to your fight, flight, or freeze responses. Just inviting that parasympathetic nervous system to kind of kick in and say, okay, it's okay, I am here, everything that I need in this moment is available to me, and just really talking nicely to yourself. If you had a hard day at work, just being like, you did your best, man, I'm so proud of you, that TPS report was great, and whatever it is. And then the final thing I'll say, I said 3 things, I'm gonna say 4. I want you to just grab a piece of cardboard, like construction paper, what is it called, poster board. Go to CVS, get some poster board, and and find pictures of yourself growing up and just younger versions of yourself. So I have on I call it an inner child board, kind of like a vision board. My inner child board, I have pictures of me from birth all the way up to kind of where I'm at today, earlier versions of myself. And it's hanging right next to my full length mirror. And I just, chat with them. And I'm like, you did such a great job. Thanks for getting me to where I am today. Thanks for taking care of me in that hard moment. They've got a picture of me in high school. High school sucked for me. And I talked to her a lot. And I'm like, you were so strong. You were so brave. You got me through so much shit. And I'm so grateful, right? Because oftentimes when we have experienced trauma, when we look back on those experiences, we go into a place of a lot of self-blame and a lot of self-doubt. I can't believe I put myself in this situation. I fucked it up. Of course, this happened to me because I was doing X. And when we have an inner child board and we can have an actual conversation eye to eye with the version of ourselves that went through that, we develop a tremendous amount of gratitude and compassion. And that can be a really powerful springboard for feeling better about who we are today.
I've always find it hard to not put myself down. Even when I'm joking, I'm constantly doing that. And instead of building myself up. Now, someone brought up to me about being molested as a child, that not to necessarily forget that it happened, but to change the story.
Absolutely.
As you tell it, and like how you were able to overcome it. And so once you've kind of rewritten and you think of it a different way, you can handle it a lot better.
Yeah, amen. Amen. One of the most powerful experiences of my life happened on my living room sofa. I went into a deep meditation and I walked into the room where I was sexually assaulted.
So sorry.
Thank you. I have yet to meet anyone that hasn't had some sort of experience where they had a part of them ripped out, whether it was through something fairly banal or something really extreme like what you experienced. What I did in this meditation was I walked into that room, I can see the bed frame, I can see the yellow sheets, I can see all of the Snoopy underwear, I can see it all. And I picked that 15-year-old up off the bed and I carried her out of there. And something about that meditation was probably 12 years ago at this point. It really was a pivot point for me, being able to say that's over now. That's done. It happened and I'm not over it, but it's done. It's finished. It's not happening again. It's not active, right? We can kind of think like, gonna botch this in a million ways, right? Like basic quantum physics, right? We know that all things are happening in all times, right? I like to think that incident that was continuing to happen over and over again, all things happening at all times, right? If that was still a thing that was happening, that's done now. It's no longer happening. I closed the door, I tidied it up. It's not happening anymore. And I feel the truth of that, even though I don't understand the science.
What do you think about hypnotherapy?
I love hypnotherapy. I do EFT with all of my clients, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, which is the most, generic term ever. For those of you that don't know what Emotional Freedom Technique is, it's just tapping. It's acupressure plus cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. So yeah, I was like thinking for a second, what is the cannabis thing? It's different than it's not
CBD.
CBD. Yes, no, it's not CBD. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. So Emotional Freedom Technique is hitting on acupressure points borrowed from the Chinese meridian system, the concept of that your body has energy meridians running through it. So you're hitting on particular pressure points while also stating aloud, like your friend said, the story of what happened, and then reprogramming that story. So you're hitting these energetic meridians. And again, buy into the science, don't buy into the science. But what I have seen consistently with my clients over 2 years is that is a drastic and immediate shift that we then over the course of 3 to 6 months reinforce.
Yeah, I can't stress enough, anyone out there has experienced that, get someone you can talk to, someone you can trust. Find a therapist. Don't let that destroy you, because it will destroy you if you allow it. Don't put yourself down. You've already been assaulted by someone else. Don't assault yourself. I went through that for so many years, just destroying everything that was a part of me. Everything I thought everything I liked, everything I did was stupid. That nobody liked the same stuff that I did, and you don't do that to yourself. You waste so much of your life doing that. It's not your fault. Somebody else was an idiot. Somebody else did something stupid to you. They're the one that should be punished, not you.
Amen.
And I don't know how you feel about it, but I did a past life regression.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Oh my gosh, that made such a difference.
Mm-hmm.
That like kicked everything off for me. It was an aha moment for me. And
Yeah.
to inside your head to change everything, how the events happened, everything, and to rewrite it to where you're the hero of the story.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that makes such a difference.
Yeah, huge difference.
Now, if we could switch from that to the business part of it.
Sure, let's go.
I've found that myself included, a lot of people are afraid of being successful.
Yeah, and
Why?
and few things are interrelated. Oh man, why? What a big question. such a small word. What a big question.
Right.
I think that there's a lot of different reasons. One, I think society is really good at holding up success stories and really bad at holding up failure on the way to success stories. Thomas Edison invented, again, botching numbers, come for me, people, but here's the general concept. Thomas Edison invented hundreds of light bulbs that didn't work before there was one, right? We've got all sorts of different instances of things that didn't make it to market before the thing that did make it to market, right? But we, as we're a storytelling species. It's how we make meaning. We're not big fans of telling the soggy lunch bag when we got pushed in the mud by the school bully. We really like to just hear how he went to prom with the prom queen. We're not big fans of the failure on the path to success story. And I think if we were to normalize failure in our culture in a way that is not at this moment, we would have very different outcomes in terms of innovation and success. I think we tend to, as much I should say, I'm a deep patriot. I love this country so deeply, and we don't do a great job of celebrating failure as a necessary stepping stone to innovation. And I think that it holds us back when we talk about why we're lagging in math and science. And we'll talk science specifically. When we're lagging in science, I think this has a lot to do with it, right? We live in a culture of success. And now that we have social media, that's kind of been amplified and we only show the parts that are really working well. It's what a beautiful couple, and 3 weeks later they're divorced, right?
Right.
we don't show the sausage being made. So I think one of the reasons that we're afraid of succeeding is we are afraid of failing on the way. And there's only so successful you can be if you don't really bite the big one pretty often in the pursuit of something great. And so we see people go into stupid, fucking horrible, cubicle, the office jobs, right? Where they're propping up mediocre companies that are doing generally, I don't want to say generally, oftentimes there's, big corporations aren't like necessarily acting in the best interest of their employees or the best interest of the country or the best interest of the environment, right? And they're pumping out products that are like mediocre and crappy. And when you've got people that get really innovative and scrappy, I think what you see consistently is that they have a certain level of confidence around fucking up, pretty big. And for all of my executive coaching clients, I make them we watch a clip together of Elon Musk throwing a like metal ball during the public like unveiling of one of his trucks, and they had like played this up as like the windows are shatterproof, which I don't understand. I'm not a car guy. Like, I don't get it. But this was like a thing that these like windows didn't shatter. Like, fine, whatever. And Elon Musk comes out in the middle of, millions and millions of people watching. And he has this like demo friend, like pull out this metal ball. And they're like, the windows won't shatter. Here's the demonstration. And he throws it and the window shatters.
Oh, no.
Elon Musk, like kind of nonchalantly is like, try the other one, right? Okay. And he tries the other one and the other one shatters, right? And what I have my clients do is really pay attention to Elon Musk's body language in this moment. His shoulders don't go up. He doesn't get into apology mode. He literally, had he been holding a beer, he would have been like quietly sipping it. There were no feathers that were ruffled, and maybe under the surface there were, right? I don't know. I'm not in his brain. But when you have someone who has a deep sense of, I'm okay, I'm good enough, my products are innovative, I'm changing the world, even if one flops, when one does, even in a very, very, very public way, there's not this kind of existential crisis of, I'm not good enough because my product didn't work. And I think oftentimes, especially when we talk about entrepreneurship, whether it's, physical products or services, we have people get wrapped around this axle of, I am my product. And if someone doesn't like my product, therefore I am not worthy, I am not good enough.
Yeah.
Is this landing?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Have you heard the story of Formula 409?
Mm-mm.
You know why it's called Formula 409?
No.
Because the first 408 times it didn't work right.
Yeah, there you go.
So people should think, that's a good cleaning product. Took them that many times to get the formula down right. So
yeah, and epic fuck ups are often wild successes. 3M did not mean to invent Velcro. It was supposed to be something else. Post-it notes were supposed to be some sort of I'm pulling out my origin stories incorrectly here. They were supposed to be like a bookmark. They were supposed to be something else. Chocolate chip cookies were not chocolate chip cookies. They were like mushed up chocolate in the service of trying to get them to be like chocolate cookies. Potato chips were a chef like trying to say fuck you to someone because some guy kept like sending back his french fries being like, they're too thick, and the chef was finally like, fuck you, try this, bitch. And like, now we have potato chips, right? And so when we think about like Bob Ross, there's no mistakes, only happy accidents, right?
Yeah.
You're not failing, you're learning. And unless you're driving drunk or raping someone, like, then you're failing and you're a horrible person. But in general, if you're, the question is, why are people afraid of success? I think people are afraid of failing publicly, right? On the road to success is public failure. Two, I think oftentimes when we grow up in systems, right, home systems where unhappiness and conflict was the normal, we will go try to replicate that because we are humans and we seek what feels comfortable, not what feels good. We seek safety, we seek that which our nervous system recognizes as home base. So when you've got that in the work world, let's say you go, you leave a crappy home growing up, Not that there's crappy homes, but you leave crappy conflict dynamics, right? And you go replicate that in your adult relationship. And now you want to go like succeed on a higher level. Like it's not going to play out well. And then I think related to that, I call it the who do you think you are conundrum, right?
Mhm.
Where you grew up or you are currently in a social system in which success was not celebrated and it was pointed at as an evidence of like being too big for your britches, then why would you succeed? We will prioritize getting love over anything else.
Yeah.
And if being successful in exceptional ways, right, publicly being celebrated, we're talking specifically in the context of business, right? If being exceptional and succeeding in business means that you're too big for your britches, and the people that you grew up with are gonna think that you're trying to one up everybody. And that means,
Yeah.
on a deep psychological level, whether or not it's conscious, you're afraid that you're going to be abandoned. You're not going to do it.
Yeah. True. Yeah. That seems to have been one reason why I would never try anything.
Yeah.
And now it's like I throw caution to the wind. I'll give it a shot. It's either going to work or it's not. And
Yeah.
I love to bake, and I can't tell you how many recipes that I've tried to kind of make my own, and it screwed up. But then I'll try something different the next time, and all of a sudden everybody loves the cookies or pastries, whatever. Just give it a shot.
Yeah.
But something else that I wanted to make a point of, I see other YouTubers out there that they talk about, oh, I don't take a day off. I do this recording every day, and I do this, blah 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 blah, and I spend all this time on it. But even though that's good that you're spending time on perfecting what you're doing, I don't think they emphasize enough the balance of home and, uh, to me, spirituality
Yeah.
on top of business. What's your advice on that?
I think this comes down to kind of hustle culture,
Mhm.
right? Like the way to get ahead is to hustle hard. And we have lots of evidence that that's true. And we have limited evidence that it's not, but that evidence exists. So in the same way that I want you to put together a board of people that will unconditionally support me,
Mhm.
want people to kind of hit silence on anyone that is working in this crazy breakneck way that doesn't feel authentic, right? And find people to expand your belief in the possibility of being wildly successful while also taking very good care of yourself. And so I think a couple of my kind of key expanders here, my coach Emma Burgess, who's based in New Zealand. You can find her just at Emma in Flow. So EMMAIN and then flow.com. She has already, we're July right now. She's already made, million cash in house right now. I don't know what her sales are at this point. I think
Mhm.
no, it's got to be more than that. Her first year where she decided I'm really going to prioritize self-care over all other, she made $1.2 million. This year she's cashed in house at 1, and that was before the end of Q2. So this was before the end of last month. And she's not working more than 6 hours a day. We have other examples that I really like to look at, for Lacey Phillips. Her website's just tobemagnetic.com, TOBE magnetic.com. She's a really great example of holding that up. There absolutely are people that you can look to and say, here's someone really prioritizing their spiritual well-being and still making millions of dollars and still making a great impact in the world.
Mhm.
And then there are people that, I want to, Tim Ferriss, hold up Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week, right? Hustle culture does not have to be the only path forward. I remember listening to Tim Ferriss right as I was finishing up my dissertation, and him talking about he doesn't get up before 10 a.m. as a general rule. And I was like, I want that. Because I wrote my dissertation when my son was an infant, and I was running a nonprofit of 5,000 people. And I was just like, as you know, that Scarlett O'Hara moment before the end of before intermission, where she's like, as God is my witness, I will never go hungry again. I was like, as God is my witness, I will never wake up at 5 a.m. again. And then I went to a business conference in November 2019, and all these different entrepreneurs, from Quest Nutrition, I mean, like Ed Milet, big entrepreneurs that I admire. They all got up and they're like, the common element is that we get up at 5 a.m. And for a long time, I felt really guilty. I don't get up before 8, and as a general rule, I'll sleep later than that, given the opportunity. And I felt really guilty about that. And this is where hustle culture, right, comes in. I'm sorry, I'm gonna shit talk somebody. One of the people that was really the leader of the bandwagon as I was getting into my business full time, one of the people that I really looked to as a kind of like prototype of where I wanted to go was a woman named Rachel Hollis. And for those of you that are listening and know who she is, you're probably cringing, but she was really someone that I don't want to say idolized, but she was someone I looked to and was like, I can make a living doing this. So she's a white kind of self-help guru coach, entrepreneur coach, that she turned herself into a business coach, which I have so many thoughts about that too. But she was this person that I really looked to, and I was like, I can make a career for myself serving people in the professional development space who want to really accelerate who they are and do it in a way that serves the world deeply. And the more that I watched her personal life unravel and her like double down on this, like, drink half your body weight in water and exercise every morning. And if I get up, if I wake up before, 4 a.m., I go back to bed. But if I wake up after, I get up and the alarm goes off every day, at 5 a.m. And my husband and I always have these reconnecting rituals and just like every time, she was selling a, what is it called? A journal at Target that it called the Start Today journal, that was like all these different kind of like, you wake up at 5 and then you meditate and then you journal and then you go for a run and then you run your business and you do all this stuff. She just like had a public meltdown. She was using social media as most business owners are at this point. And she got on and she compared herself to Harriet Tubman. And yeah, exactly.
Alrighty.
Right? After doing a rant where she spoke about her cleaning company as a sweet lady that comes and scrubs her toilets, and I want to say more attuned to privilege contingent of the world was like, maybe don't describe your housekeeper that way.
Right.
Like that's kind of, like really boiling it down to its most base. I have a housekeeper once a month. She keep, like, my house would go up in flames. I'm so grateful for her support and love and organizational skills, and I can't imagine boiling it down to that. But then in her means of doubling down, she went and like compared herself to Harriet Tubman. And so when we think about kind of hustle culture, high performance culture, how do people get ahead? How do people make it work? And where does that coincide or not with prioritizing spiritual and mental well-being? I think when you don't prioritize those things, there is only so far you can go before you kind of Icarus crash your ass back to the sea. Because if you are not taking time to reconnect with your own kind of highest self, inner wisdom, and you are not making time to really listen to your feedback loop. I have a number of people, I call them my board of directors. I have a number of people in my life that are there to call me on my bullshit, and I listen to them. I'm in recovery. I have a sponsor. I have a therapist, I have a coach, I have people in my mastermind group that I run things by. I have a couple of dear friends, one of whom's been in my life for 31 years. And if I'm going to make a big move or something feels a little niggly in my gut, I run things by them because I'm not super interested in losing what I've built.
Of course.
Because I get overtired and overworked, and therefore I'm just shooting from the hip without, anything in the gas tank.
Yeah. Well, to me, my philosophy is if you don't take care of your home first, you can't take care of anything outside of it.
Yeah.
So, and that starts with the self. You have to take care of yourself mentally, physically. I have diabetes and all these other problems. If I don't control all that, then I'm not going to be there for my wife when she needs me. And I got to make sure my house is in order, that, there is a flow between me and my wife, and everything is going like it's supposed to. And our relationship is strong, our relationship with my kids and my grandkids. And then my business is going to come next.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't feel that way. They think their business has to come first, but it's not going to work for me if everything else isn't going. There has to be a balance.
Yeah.
There has to be.
And I think it's like more than a balance. I think it's a foundation. And here's what I mean by that. You cannot have a skyscraper if you do not have a strong foundation, right?
Exactly.
It's going to fall over. And so the way to build a really strong business, and multi-million-dollar business. I have a dear client that's been with me, for the better part of 18 months. And he's built incredible things. He's leading a $500 million sales team now, right? This is not a like sit in a corner and sing Kumbaya to yourself and listen to I don't know, Tony Robbins tapes until you puke, right? That's not what this is about. This is about strengthening the core of who you are, developing a foundation of unshakable trust in your own abilities. And from that foundation, understanding that you can build as high as you want.
Now, I love the fact that you meditate, because I do myself. I actually incorporate that when I'm working, when I'm doing my videos and I'm editing, and I'm waiting for the conversion to happen. That's usually when I start my meditation. When I'm with my wife and we go to the river or we go out to the lake, I do my meditating out there as well. We do that together, and it's helped me to, one, get over my depression, get over my anxiety, my PTSD. I have to stress this to everyone. You talk to your doctor before you do anything. But I slowly weaned myself off of the pills that I was taking. They weren't doing me any good, and I was actually getting thoughts that I shouldn't have. But once again, you talk to your doctor. Don't do it just because I did it. But I was able to slowly get off of those medications, and now my meditation is my medication.
Love that. And okay, so I'll kick in the other side of that then, because I think that there's a lot of opportunities to strengthen our inner reserves, calm our nervous system, get to a place where we feel safe and comfortable moving forward in life with our own inner resources. And then I also think that there's conditions that require medication. I have bipolar 1. Bipolar 1 is more fatal than breast cancer and testicular cancer combined.
Yeah.
And so with those stats on hand, and we know that therapy is a really important component of that, and healthy eating, and sleeping, and water, like sleep cycles, like throwing off a bipolar person's sleep can be extremely dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Using marijuana, using over the counter drugs that cause stimulation, using alcohol can be really, really dangerous. And so you can eliminate all of those factors, have healthy sleep, have exercise, get vitamin D, all of that, and still have a fatal illness that is more, has a higher mortality rate than breast cancer and testicular cancer combined, right? We think of schizophrenia, think of different illnesses that it can be really dangerous to try to wean off of. And so I think when it comes down to it, it's really a matter of looking at, where do I want to go in my life? What is it that I'm shooting for? And that doesn't have to be, I want a Fortune 100 company. I want a Ferrari. I want a waterfront home. If that's on your vision board, fucking go for it. I should say, I don't necessarily do vision boards, but whatever. If that's where you want to head, go for it. For me, where I'm headed is like, I want a 7-figure company. Eventually I'd like an 8-figure company. I want to drive a really nice car. I want a house that's paid off in full. I want my son to have a really grounded, sane mom. I want a relationship that feels like home base. And anything beyond that is like Yahtzee, man. Like I'm excited. And I know for me, meditation, working a program of recovery with the 12 steps, doing, things to support my mental well-being, like eating healthy and going for walks on a pretty regular basis. Those only get me like 70% of the way there because I have a fatal illness. And so I take medicine, and so I think it's really important that, people go, different strokes for different folks, kind of what is it that your goal is, and who do you need to work with, medical team, therapist, maybe a recovery support team, if that's something that's going on in your life. We know that addiction and high performance are really highly correlated. So where do you want to go? And then from there, what's the rocket ship that takes you there, and who's on your team to get you?
Well, when people have something like you have, that of course, you need the medication. Myself, it worked for me. I was on a lot of these medications for like 15 years and it wasn't getting me anywhere. That's, and like I say, that's why you should consult with your doctor before you do anything. I have a good support team. So the funny thing is that I was alcoholic, drug addict. It'd be a lot quicker if I told you the stuff I didn't try than the stuff that I did. And whenever I have chronic pain, it's just going to be with me for the rest of my life. And I stress to my doctor, I do not want these opioids and stuff because I have an addictive personality and that's the last thing I need. So they gave me a medication. It's like methadone, and it's supposed to help get you off of these things, but off label, it's also good for pain. And it ends up being the best thing I've ever taken for my pain. And then I used to take the Duloxetine for my depression, right?
Yeah.
And I got off of it. And now I have to take it again because it correlates with the stuff that I'm taking for the pain. But, different strokes for different folks, like you said. Talk to your doctor. If it's important that you take it, then you take it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that this is a great example, right, of why it's so important to not kind of go it alone. I think, again, kind of American individualism, pull it up by our bootstraps, blah, 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 gives us the impression that kind of like people are miracles that just rise out of the ashes and create incredible companies. It's like, if you look at most of the people who are in the upper echelons of business, most of them have housekeepers, nannies, some of them have home managers, which is kind of like a butler that manages every aspect of the home, from the grocery shopping to, the dry cleaning and all of that. People have therapists, people have executive coaches. Of the business owners that I can just like tick off the back of my hand that have $1 million plus companies, I don't know anyone that does not have a business coach. Not one. I can't think of an example. Within that category, I would also say I can't think of any that don't have a therapist as well. But the more support that you have, the higher you go.
Oh
Again,
yeah.
strong foundations build skyscrapers. You've got to have a team of people, a board of directors, paid or not. I'm not saying get a housekeeper or else your business is going to fail. Which sure is nice, and I'm real grateful. I'm saying without a coach, without a therapist, without close friends that you listen to when they give critical feedback, there's only so far you're going to be able to grow.
Oh yeah. Well, I had to change my inner circle altogether.
Yep.
I have people that I love dearly that I would still do anything for to this day, but I don't really hang out with because they're still drinking and still doing the drugs, and they're not trying to move forward. And
Yep.
my circle of friends have changed so much. I mean,
Yep.
everyone that I know in my circle is successful in something.
Yep.
And that's what I'm aiming for. And I think that's important for people to do too. I mean, I'm not saying you have to excommunicate all your
Oh,
friends. Just I love them from afar.
yep. Exactly. Exactly. I think that it's really important to be clear on like this kind of like cut people out versus just kind of distance yourself quietly. It doesn't have to be like a rose bush where you aggressively prune, right? You can just kind of like
Exactly.
stop watering that plant in the garden of your friendships.
Exactly.
And some people will wither and some people will stick around, but they don't have to be like main players in your social life.
Right. Exactly. I know I probably hurt a few people's feelings because I don't talk to them as often, but I just don't want to go backwards. And I feel like I wouldn't move forward if I spent my time with them, but I still love them and I still do anything for them. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, we're a reflection of our surroundings always. We are little baby sponges. And whether it's the people that we associate with or the kind of environment that we put ourselves in, it comes out in how we work. It comes out in how we relate to other people and how we prioritize our well-being. And so if you want to have a very successful company, a very healthy relationship, a healthy body, a good relationship with who you see in the mirror, right? Emotionally, physically, right? I had a tremendous amount of body dysmorphia, in part because I was surrounding myself with people in a 12-step program that were committed to being not just thin, but really thin.
Mm.
And when I stepped out of that framework, all of a sudden, did a bunch of therapy, I felt real differently about myself. So we are a product of our environment. You cannot feel better about yourself if you are surrounding yourself with people that make you feel bad. And so you've got
Sure.
to, head for safer waters. And that's not to say, we're all pretty princesses and we can never go into a situation that makes us uncomfortable. It's to say, if your day in, day out is a situation that erodes your self-confidence, don't be surprised if your life doesn't move forward.
Sure. By no means am I perfect. I still make mistakes. I still do things I shouldn't do, but I learn from those and try to move forward. Feel like you should live your life like you could be an example for other people. And I'm hoping that the folks that I'm not spending as much time with sees how my life has changed and how well I'm doing, and they'll want to do the same.
Yeah.
But they have to make that decision for themselves. You can't do it for them.
Yeah.
Be the best you can be. Now, do you have a website?
I do. It's www.souldrliz.com. So SOULDRLIZ.com. You can also find me on Facebook, which is where I put a lot of content and in general just kind of hang out a bunch. It's Elizabeth, and then my middle name Degi, DEGI, and then my last name DuBois, DUBOIS, Elizabeth Degi DuBois. And I'm also on LinkedIn, which is just Liz Degi DuBois.
Okay, I have to hook up with you on LinkedIn then.
All righty.
I love LinkedIn. That's kind of my Facebook.
Oh man, teach me your ways.
I've met some incredible people on there, and I think it's more serious on LinkedIn. You still have a few that treat it like Facebook, but then you have those that are genuinely trying to make good connections in the business world. So Alignable is a good one if you haven't tried it yet.
Alignable.
Yes, I love that site. It's quite a bit like LinkedIn. Just get some good business connections on there, and met some incredible people there too. But is there anything else you'd like to mention before we go?
No,
You have any seminars or?
Yeah, if you want to work with me one-on-one, at the moment I don't have any group programs running. If you want to work with me one-on-one, the best way to reach out to me is just via DM on LinkedIn or Facebook, or you can shoot me an email at drlizdubois@gmail.com. So DRLIZDUBOIS@gmail.com. I work with people who are either going through divorce, who are looking to expand their professional impact, expand their income. That's a big focus of my work, is helping people increase their income. Or if you are going through both of those things, you're trying to save your company at the same time that you're leaving your marriage, reach out to me and let's talk about how we might be able to work together and get you to where you want to be.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad that we got together here.
You're so welcome.
And you're always welcome back. If you have anything you'd like to promote, please let me know. I'd love to help.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for having me. This has been just a real privilege to get to talk about some real nitty-gritty stuff. I appreciate it.
Well, and I also like to thank all of you out there. If you are new to the channel, I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope you hit that subscribe button and come back. For those of you who are regular, thank you for your support. It's because of you that we are doing what we're doing. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network